Hello everyone, and welcome back to the Custom Figure Showcase. For those of you who have been following this channel for a while, you may recognize this series where I give you all a closer look at some of my favorite custom figures in my collection, while explaining some of the behind-the-scenes tips and tricks that many of you have asked about. If you have a recommendation for a figure you'd like me to review, or a question regarding how they were made, please let me know in the comments below. With that out of the way, let's get into the review of my Triton Squad Stormtrooper. Triton Squad first appeared in the PS2 and Wii versions of the video game Star Wars The Force Unleashed. In it, Triton Squad assisted Darth Vader in pacifying the Wookiee resistance on the planet Kashyyyk. In this version of the game, Triton Squad has unique Phase 3 clone armor which combines aspects of both Stormtrooper and clone armor to make an entirely unique armor set that had never been seen before. The standard troopers of the squad appear to have Legacy 501st livery, while the commander sports a pauldron and a unique Sandtrooper-inspired backpack. Interestingly, in other versions of the game, these troopers appear to have been replaced by regular stormtroopers featuring a unique hybrid stormtrooper helmet, and are affectionately referred to as ugly ducklings within the Star Wars community. This figure was a commission piece done for the original Lucasfilm concept artist for the Chrome Studios version of the game, Steve Stamatiadis, and I'll be shipping it out to him as soon as this review is finished. I highly recommend checking out his Instagram page, Space Captain Steve, linked below, where he's posted a ton of never-before-seen concepts he made for The Force Unleashed, including a few for Triton Squad, where they have alternate looks and paint deco. Steve, if I butchered your last name, I apologize. Steve was a fantastic wealth of knowledge for this project, and I truly could not have made this figure without his insight. Steve told me a number of details which really helped us refine the design of this figure. This project was absolutely a team effort, with my good friend Talon Illustrations creating a turnaround concept sketch of the final design, and my buddy Craig from GI Trooper Kits doing all the 3D model work. To create this custom figure, we initially drew up several concept designs, starting with the helmet. We felt like the helmet was the most iconic part of the design and the most crucial part to get right. After going through many iterations and changes, we finally developed a design for the helmet that got both Steve's unofficial seal of approval and, most importantly, looked aesthetically pleasing. While memorable, the original game model is extremely low resolution and only displays well from certain angles. Our goal was to combine the final game design with some of the ideas from the concept to make a helmet that felt both game accurate and lore friendly. After all, the armor was intended to be a bridge between the Phase 2 Clone Trooper armor and the Stormtrooper armor. After we finished the initial design for the helmet, Talon then began a rough sketch of the armor details. We wanted to try our best to refine some of those low-poly game details into something we felt really fit within a realistic Star Wars universe. Starting with the chest piece, it's mostly just a clone chest piece, but stretched and squashed to fit the general proportions of the shorter Stormtrooper chest piece. The shoulders are mostly based on the Stormtrooper, but lacking the angled ridge and a sharp cut on the inside. The forearms and handplates are generally Clone Trooper based, but with the raised ridges present on the Stormtrooper armor. The abdomen was quite fun to do, but took a few revisions to get right. I really wanted to take the already existing inset trenches present from both the Stormtrooper armor and on the Clone Trooper armor, and slightly modify them so that the Stormtrooper ridges generally resemble the Clone Trooper ridges more with that angled look. This is honestly one of my favorite details on the figure and really serves to bridge that gap between Clone and Stormtrooper armor. The belt is pretty simple and is mainly just a Stormtrooper belt, but with the proportions of a clone belt. Steve was adamant that the boxes on the belt and on the knees should look like slightly rounded boxes, as he intended them to appear vacuum formed, just like the Stormtroopers in the original trilogy were. Talon largely led the design direction on the thermal detonator, combining the shape of the larger Stormtrooper detonator with some of the details present on the clone detonator like the buttons, again reinforcing the idea of combining the two armor designs. The knee armor was really fun to design. We primarily based this on the concept art, with it being a Clone Trooper knee peg with the rear strap removed and the bottom rounded off to the shape of a teardrop. A sort of long-standing mystery within the Star Wars community has always been whether this pauldron was intended to be a unique item due to its boxy shape and appearance of having two straps for the pauldron, or whether it was simply just a low-poly model for the original trilogy Sandtrooper design. Steve cleared it up that it was simply a low-polygon model intended to be the standard Stormtrooper pauldron, just like those worn by the Sandtroopers in A New Hope. Alright, so the backpack has a pretty interesting origin, as it appears to be modeled after a fan design done by Mike Harrison. I discovered this link while looking for references for Sandtrooper backpacks on Google Images, and I stumbled upon his old website, Studio Creations, which will be linked in the description. Reverse image searching some of the images on his guide brought me to dead links, which, using the Wayback Machine, I was able to find high-definition photos of his backpack, which appeared to directly match those of the game design. This stuck out as odd to me because these pictures appear on Mike's website as early as 2004, whereas the game itself wouldn't release until 2008, over 4 years later. This leads me to believe that the modeling artist who worked on the game must have stumbled across Mike's website the same way I did, and referenced his backpack instead of the actual movie backpack, leading to Mike's custom fan backpack appearing in the game. I was able to find Mike on Instagram and let him know what I found. He was pretty surprised and wasn't aware this backpack was even in the game, and was excited to see the miniaturized version we made 20 years later. The backpack can be easily removed and attached using 5mm magnets embedded in the back armor and the backpack. Overall, this backpack design, although simple, was an insanely awesome piece of work, and I'm so happy we can immortalize Mike's 20-year-old design in this figure. Craig, also known as GI Trooper Kits, did an amazing job modeling this backpack, and I can't thank him enough for the incredible job he did modeling this 20-year-old fan design. For the actual physical build, the chest plates, shoulders, belt, and crotch armor were all printed in rubber-like F69 resin by Resi1, giving them a ton of flexibility and elasticity without having to worry about snapping. The chest piece was designed as a single slip-on component and has 5mm magnets attached on the inside to allow the backpack to snap into place. I wanted the figure to be able to display it as either the standard trooper or the commander variety. The pauldron was also printed in flexible resin and has an elastic 1/8 inch ribbon that allows the piece to stay in place. This elastic ribbon was actually inspired by the Hot Toys pauldron, which uses the same ribbon to stay in place. Finally, for the accessories, in addition to the pauldron and the backpack, I also included a number of swappable hands that I 3D printed, including a force gesture hand, a pointing hand, and a set of relaxed casual hands. These hands can be easily removed and really expand the posability and playability of the figure. I recently posted a poll on my Instagram at Common Customs asking you guys what questions you would like answered, and here are a few of them. PF Flyers Young 93 asked which figures I used for this masterpiece. I appreciate kind words. I actually just used two figures, a Black Series Stormtrooper and a knockoff Clone Trooper. The reason I used both these figures was because Steve told me that he imagined this trooper as having a Rogue One style ribbed undersuit rather than a clone undersuit, so I wanted to capture that detail. It would be much easier to just use a clone body, but I really like the proportions of the Stormtrooper body better, since it works a lot better with the cod piece and kidney piece as well. I used the legs from the knockoff Clone Trooper, sliced off the knees, and drumbled out the inside to make a hole to stick the drumbled down legs of the Stormtrooper. Once I had the fit just right, I super glued in the Stormtrooper legs into the Clone Trooper legs. This was awesome because it allowed me to keep that ankle articulation, which I really didn't want to have to replace. Smish21 asked about what weathering and painting techniques I used on my figure. As far as the base coat goes, I used Citadel colored white scar for the base layer on all the pieces besides the flex pieces. For the flex pieces, I airbrushed Vallejo white primer because the Citadel rattle can paint, as good as it is for priming things, tends to crack on flex pieces, whereas the airbrush paint doesn't. I have no idea why this is, but I always recommend that when you're painting flex pieces, always use airbrush paint rather than rattle can paint. For the blue, I masked off all the deco with tamiya masking tape and airbrushed the blue deco using my custom mix of 501st blue. For the weathering, I just took Vallejo German Field Gray and mixed it about 50-50 with some water and did some small washes in the crevices and surfaces of the model. I then spread it around with my thumb or a wet Q-tip or paper towel to give the armor a slightly weathered look. This process is a lot longer than just doing a wash over the entire figure, but gives it a more realistic look. For the scorch marks and scratches, I did my best to match those features in the game, and just added a tiny bit of black to the mix to make it a bit darker and dry brush those with a 000 brush. Once again, I want to thank you all for the questions, and thank you so much for watching the video. If you have any questions or recommendations for other figures you'd like to see me talk about in a video, please leave those in the comments below. Until next time, peace.